Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Cricket Club podcast in association with our sponsors, Phantom Cricket, Kentish Mortgage Company, and Savills. Thanks to those guys for sponsoring the podcast. We wouldn't be here without them, so huge thanks to them. Welcome back to all the viewers online. So glad you'd come back and join us again. If you're not here, you can watch it back on YouTube later on, and we'll post a link after we've finished. But today we are absolutely delighted and thrilled to have Ryana MacDonald-Gay on the podcast. As always, I'll run through a little bit of Ryana's history, which is extraordinary. But as you all know, Ryana is currently in the England side, just come back from playing in the Women's Ashes out in Australia, and we'll talk about that. But Ryana is a young woman, 21. Happy birthday for earlier in the month, or in February, Ryana, not too long ago. 21. So extraordinary rise, and we're going to talk about that. But firstly, thanks so much for coming on. It's really great to have you on and talk about the women's game, which we're all fans of and loving the rise of the women's game. So it's great to have you on and talk about all things cricket, what you're getting involved in, where you're going next, what the summer holds for you. We'll talk about how great it was to be involved in the Ashes and etc. And we'll hopefully have a few questions in the chat for you as we go. So welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. And Chris, any early questions from you?
No, I think it's just I think what a lot of people would like to chat about is obviously the recent tour in Australia. I'm sure we'll get onto that, but no, I think it's just we have a lot of young parents and young listeners who are trying to make their way through the system. There's a couple of people who often pop up with questions about how to progress. So no, it would just be, from my perspective, as we touched on earlier, just really interesting to see how it compared to my experiences going up through the junior system as a guy, I guess, and how it's changing, and how women's cricket has changed in the last 10 years to, because in the last 10 years it's been a huge change in the money, the setup, the coaching. So no, I think it's just going to be really interesting to see sort of your experiences and how it compares and where it's going.
I'm looking forward to asking the questions anyway, because I'm interested to find out about all this stuff and interested to hear about the women's test match team and ODI team, and because I watch it on the TV and don't know any of the players. So the first time we've ever spoken to anyone from that team and that circle. So it's great. That's great. But for people watching, Ryana recently turned 21, made her county debut in 2019. So 6 years ago, I made your county debut for Kent against Sussex. And then, sadly, because of the tier structure, or because you want to move to Surrey, you're moving to Surrey this year, I see, in 2025. So Kent's loss is Surrey's gain, I'm afraid. South East Stars, Ryana, 2021 to 24. So just tell us a little bit about... Stop me and Chris talking, because we can talk forever. From 2019, which is only less than 5 years ago, to playing for England in the test matches, how have you found it? How have you done it? And what's it like to be almost at the top of the game in such a short space of time?
Yeah, I mean, when you said 2019, I was thinking a couple of years ago, but wow, 6 years ago, yeah, it's crazy. I must have been about 15. Loads have changed since then. Obviously, 15, I was in the county setup, under 15s, playing a bit for the under 17s as well. And there was the junior RDC, which was like South East Stars, but the junior side, when it was Super League. So I was involved in that for a year and a bit before it changed into the regional setup, which was great. It was a great development for young girls and even people who are older, just to keep playing at that higher level than just what county could offer you. Made my debut. I remember that game. It was great. I mean, I think I remember my wicket. I got a wicket, but the ball before I got hit for a 6. So I was like, oh God, this is really quite a ropey start to women's cricket. But, it was all right. Turned out all right. Played Kent women's for a bit whilst everything was going on, which was great. It was such a great setup to have an opportunity. Remember, we had an overseas, which was great. Just bringing experience from different parts of the world, different opportunities, things that like different insights, mindsets, how they look at things, which was great. And then Stars was in 2021, roughly. Then I think that's what you said. Which was another. Sorry.
In 2021, your debut for the South East Stars.
Yes, that was the T20s. That was great. To be involved in that setup was tough. Like, it was hard to get into that squad because obviously it was quite new. There was a lot of existing players who had already played in the Super League stuff. So that was a really, really amazing opportunity to play in that. Made my debut there, and then it's just sort of carried on going from there. Had to keep competing for spots and still do now. And then, recently with the whole tiered stuff, moved to Surrey. Well, with the tier 1 moving to Surrey and Surrey winning South East Stars bid, ended up at Surrey, which has been a great new chapter, a new start. And it's really exciting for women's cricket to see how it goes from here.
And before the Surrey move, you obviously played for the Invincibles in the 100. So that your connections are already there with the Oval and some of the same players, I guess, are Surrey and Invincibles. So you've already got some people there that you know and can settle in with quite quickly. Yes,
100%. That's been really, really helpful. Knowing your way around the ground, it's massive. It's a maze. I still get lost in it. But definitely, it's been really nice to have that stepping stone into the Surrey environment through Oval Invincibles and franchise cricket.
And tell us a little bit about going forward from playing for Kent. How did you get involved? I know a bit of the answer, but it'd be nice to hear from you. You got into the England under-19s and under-23s. Was that a seamless transition for you from county into that? And is that why you're now playing for England or in that setup, or is it because of playing for Kent or South East Stars? Is that more to do with your rise through the game, or is it the England pathway?
Yeah, no. So it's a really tricky one to answer. I feel like throwing it back to when under-11s, when I played Kent under-11s, I feel like that was a really good starting block for any women's cricketer. And our coach, David Sears, he committed so much to the programme and so much to making us be better and aspire to aim for that England level from being 8 years old, 9 years old. We would have these role models of Charlotte Edwards and Lydia Greenway, and he'd make sure that we'd see them and go watch their games and do guards of honours for them. I feel like you sort of already are looking up and aspiring to be those kind of people when you grow up. So I feel like from then it sort of just puts that dream in your head. So then when you keep going through the system, obviously I think Stars did help a lot. It definitely pushes you to another level and gives you the opportunity to actually experience more of a professional setup than counties, just through financial sides of things, how that they can actually back the funding and support you with the coaches that you need and everything that you need to have that. But I feel like it was more Stars that kind of pushed the England 19 stuff. I feel like at that period of time, I was making a big decision about university and I played hockey. So I played hockey for England for about 5 years. So I was actually making the decision whether to go to American university and play hockey out there on a scholarship or stay in England and carry on playing cricket. So then I think it was just one of my old Stars coach. He rang me up and he was like, I really think you need to stay in England because I think there's a really good chance that you're going to get on this 19s program for the World Cup. And at that time I was like, I hadn't even thought of it. Like, it hadn't even come into my mind. I wasn't really aware of the World Cup that was coming up, but thanks to him, I stayed and I was like, you know what, fine. Like, let's see if it happens. If it happens, it's great. If it's not, it's fine because I can still play hockey and I can still play cricket. It's just as good an opportunity in England as it is in America. It's just America limited my options with cricket. So I think, yeah, from there, obviously having been told that there's that possibility I could be in the 19 stuff, I feel like I stayed. And then obviously I really, really enjoyed it and I loved it. And I just wanted to keep playing in different countries and big tournaments and being those players who are out there representing your country. I think that was really something that I took from that and I wanted to keep continuing doing, which was really great. And then, yeah, and then sort of just trying to be consistent within this regional setup, allowing you to play those England A stuff and actually get the opportunities there. So yeah, I'd say it was probably more stars, but I think Kent did a really good setup from a really young age in a junior way and help progress us and link us through to the Southeast Stars.
It's great to hear that. Go on, sorry, Chris.
Growing up, and what were the cricketers you looked up to? Was it primarily in the women's game? Imagine Charlotte Edwards. It was that probably when you were, or did you like watching the men's game as well? And people like AB de Villiers or Chris Gayle, or if you were bold, James Anderson. Did you like to watch both? And do you have like icons or people you looked up to on both sides, or was it predominantly on the women's side? Because it was quite a big transitional. England were very strong, I imagine, when you were getting into cricket. It was probably the Charlotte Edwards captaincy reign, and they were very much Anya Shrubsole. And was that kind of how you got into cricket, or have you always enjoyed watching cricket on both sides?
So I never really watched a lot of cricket when I was younger. I feel like I was just too busy to even sit down and watch a game of cricket that I'd be playing, or I'd be playing hockey or playing any other sport, or just being outside playing cricket with my brothers. I feel like David Sears definitely pushed us to watch a lot of the women's game and a lot of like the England women's. But as I've grown up, obviously going to like the World Cup, so I went to the 2017 World Cup where England won women. And then since then, I sort of just followed men's as well. And then to watch their 2022 World Cup, the 50 over, that was great and amazing. I think since then, I've sort of just carried on watching and being quite involved in watching both sides of the game.
We've got I'll just interject with a couple of questions from the chat from all over the world. So in Australia, Chris Joshi has asked Ryana if you've got any ambitions to play in the women's BBL.
Yeah, definitely. I think playing out in Australia was amazing. I really, really enjoyed my first experience out there last month. And yeah, I definitely would aspire to playing in the WBBL out there in December. Yeah.
And your association and getting into the Invincibles obviously had a big impact on your career, and I'm sure you're in agreement that the 100 ball franchise has been a huge factor in the growth of the women's game and given you and lots of other up and coming cricketers opportunities to play on a global format and on TV every night and in front of big crowds at the Oval. And I'm sure that's been amazing, hasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it's allowed women's players to be exposed, as you say, on that big stage and be in the limelight and perform under pressure. We train all winter long and then we go and play in the summer. And I know like previously, like it wasn't watched much, but I feel like being on that big stage on the same place as the men's, where they're playing under the same conditions on the same pitches, it definitely allows people to see just how good the women's are and how it's never really been watched and people never really have seen it. But I think it's definitely allowed a lot of players to sort of jump to that next level and be able to actually perform under that pressure and rise to the occasions that they're being put under.
So I listened to playing with the guys before the men, it's largely seen as a really positive thing for the girls or the ladies game. I don't know whether I've read some people on Twitter say that it should be a separate competition. You shouldn't have to play before or after the men's. But it's seen as a good thing to be able to have double headers on the same ground at Lords at the Oval in front of the bigger crowds. It's generally really well accepted with you as a player.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really positive. You obviously get a bit more of a crowd than you probably would if it was just the standalone women's game, which is always great. And, some people do just come for the women's game, but a lot of them do come for the men's. But then it also allows players to be in an environment where it's the same, whether you're a professional cricketer for a man or whether you're a woman. So I think playing on the same pitch, because we obviously play on that pitch and then they play on exactly the same pitch after, I think it's great. It's more like, obviously equality is there. It's great to know that people are sort of trying to see us more as equal teams, and as like into the 100 you go, like 2 teams, 1 club. I think that's a great way to look at it, and I think it's been really, really positive for women's cricket to be seen as equal to the men.
I listened to the ECB managing director or CEO do an interview on the 100 a few months ago, and they asked him what the idea of the 100 was. What were the outcomes they wanted to achieve when they started the 100? And he said there were only 2 real outcomes, which was to appeal to a new audience, which was more women and more children. And they feel that they've done both of those with 100, which I think the majority of people that I bump into and talk to would say they agree. Would you agree that they've achieved their goals, Ryana, from a player's point of view, who's an integral part of the Invincibles franchise? Do you get that impression that we're seeing more women come into the games and more kids come into the 100 ball games in the summer?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the 100 was quite an unknown format for everyone, whether you're a player, whether you're a spectator, or whether you just didn't know cricket and wanted to get involved in watching a new sport and supporting a new team. I feel like it allowed people to sort of just all come in at the same time without any preconceptions about who they should support or who does well or like teams that you want to push forward. I feel like it's a good chance to open up to everyone because no one understands it, let alone the players. So I think for the spectators to come in and have that, not quite that full grasp on it, it's okay. And it's seen as okay because their friends, family, partners, whoever it is who are into cricket, they won't understand it as well. So I think it puts everyone on a level playing field. So I think it's been really positive in that sense to bring new people coming in.
I can tell you, I'll tell you the truth. When the 100 started, I was probably generational snob in that I was a T20 test match 50 over cricketer, and I didn't go and watch any game in the 100 the first year, and made that decision based on nothing apart from being traditional. Since then, I haven't missed a game because something happened where I thought, well, I'll go and give it a try, and I took my kids' wife. My wife hasn't been to any cricket, although I'm a cricketer for 20 years. Doesn't like cricket much. Supported and brought the kids and whatever. But actually, we came to the second year of the 100. They all came. Even my little girl came. Hates cricket. Brother plays cricket. Hates him knocking a ball around inside and belting the ball against her and making her bowl to him and stuff. She came. We all went, and that was 4 years ago. And now they won't miss a game. They're chasing me now to see if the 100 fixtures are out, so that we can book tickets ahead of time to go to Lords. Because we're MCC members, so we go and watch the London Spirit. I know it's a dirty word for you, but London Spirit women are the champions. Ryana, let's be honest.
Yeah, but who's won it twice?
Seems like it's a sore subject, Vern. This one, London Spirit. We cat's out the bag now. Ryana hates the London Spirit. Let's get it on there, a big banner.
Well, we had our last guest. We've had 2 guests on, haven't we? We've had we've actually had the 3 guests we've had on. We've had one London Spirit in Zach. We've had an Oval Invincible in Bilbo, and we had a Welsh Fire in. I'm sure Mr. Northeast has played Welsh Fire, hasn't he? So we're, it's we've now got 2
Bilbo.
Invincibles come on. So,
Sam Billings is the Kent captain. Still, the Kent club captain. And an Oval Invincible, so he's sitting on the fence fairly right in the middle. So he got 1 foot in each camp, but he didn't like the London Spirit either. When we mentioned the London Spirit to Sam, the Invincibles look forward to the London Spirit London derbies. I bet I've been to them, I've watched them, so I know it's a great experience for the people watching. I'm sure it's a great experience for you to play in against your local rivals, and I'm sure you've got lots of the England team in the other dugout. Heather Knight and Sarah Glenn and lots of the other girls are in the London Spirit. So I bet there's a bit of banter going on backwards and forwards when they won the trophy this year. Took it off you.
Yeah. I mean, I will say one thing: we have won it twice, and they've won it once. So.
I'm sure they'll be out to square things up this year.
Yeah. I mean, the competition has got a lot better, and you've really seen that increase in performance and level that all the overseas and England players are bringing. So I think it'll be a really competitive tournament this year. It's
crazily good, the standard. Like I don't listen to any of this nonsense that you hear on Twitter or online or on different podcasts about the standard is this, that, and the other. I've been to watch pretty much every game in the 100 for the last 3 or 4 years, and the standard year on year is getting better and better and better, and is frighteningly good. I watched a game last year. The London Spirit lost a game last year on the way to winning it. Let's just remind ourselves that they won it. But on the way to it, they lost to their Welsh Fire at Lords, and it was a great game. And I think it's Hayley Matthews, the West Indian all-rounder, played one of the best innings you're ever likely to see. Like chasing a big score, 180, 200 or something. And she just hit the ball to all parts of the ground, into the stands, everything. Like it was brilliant to watch. There was at Lords 28,000 capacity, so it was a sellout for the whole day. But even watching the women's game, 16,000, 17,000, which is incredible, isn't it, for the women's game?
Yeah, that's an amazing.
And the Oak will be the same, won't it? I'm sure the crowd come and watch the women's game at the Invincibles, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I am biased, of course, being with Surrey and over Invincibles, but I feel like the energy at the Oval is just unmatched. There's no ground in the country that could give off the same energy that the Oval can on like a Friday night playing.
We'll Chris, we'll edit that bit out, and we'll just
overlay. Yeah, as we're both MCC members as well, Ryana. So we're Lords through and through.
Yeah. We'll edit that out. We've got some magicians behind the scenes who can edit that out, and when it goes out edited, it'll be Lords is the best ground. I'd love to play.
Can't wait to come and play for the London Spirit.
Yeah.
And one thing you did touch on, and I wanted to ask it with the way that the game has gone for the women's in terms of the money, the crowds. Obviously, that comes with more media attention, more social media attention. Obviously, there was a thing in Australia, and you don't know I'm going to ask this, but with Alex Hartley, I'm not going to ask you in particular, but that obviously kicked off a lot. With the way that it's going, there's obviously going to be more scrutiny, more people commenting. How do you deal with it? Like Zach came on a couple of weeks ago and said that he deletes a lot when he's playing well. He doesn't look at it because it doesn't matter. But when you're a bit out of form, and he even said himself that he keeps a very cool, calm, happy sort of persona, but it's very difficult to not check it out. How does obviously the Alex Hartley thing kicked up a bit with a few of the players about comments made, but what's the vibe in the dressing room when it comes to that? Do you talk about it? What's happening on social media? Especially with the way that the results were. Is it something that you personally try and ignore, or do you have like a close network that reassure and tell that keep you focused? How is it? Because it's going to get worse, isn't it? Is it just the way that the profile is going that this is going to get more and more? And just interesting to see how you deal with it.
Yeah, so a lot of the girls do delete Twitter and their social media, or they log out for the time that they're away, just so they can stay focused. And obviously they'll be able to contact their close family friends through messaging or WhatsApp. So it's not like you need to be on social media. I feel like it's discussed, not to great lengths, because I feel like you don't need to discuss when you are being, it's not very nice, like, to read those comments. So I feel like you don't need to dwell on them for so long. I mean, personally, I like to I don't really read them unless I'm like, I don't know. I don't really read them at all. If I would, I'd try and make more of a joke out of it. Just be like, oh, look what this person says about them. Like, oh, it'd be interesting to see what they're doing on the other side of the phone. But yeah, no, I feel like the best way is just to not read them, just ignore them. It's not like they are doing what you are doing. So I feel like it's not comparable. So to listen to what they're saying would just be torture for yourself. So yeah, I think a lot of the girls just sort of try and blank it out. And personally, yeah, I just blank it out and just sort of forget about the event that's happened if I am out of form or if I've made some bad mistakes in a game, or like those things happen. So I just sort of rule the event out of my mind and don't look at any social media about that.
Got some questions in the chat for you, Ryana. And I'm delighted to say there's lots of them, lots of questions. We're going to get back to Australia shortly, but we've got some more local questions for you. Calypso Cricket from Maidstone.
Yeah.
They're listening and loving the show, and they would like your thoughts on the tier structure, having just heard you talk about Kent and Surrey. Do you think the tier structure is a good thing for women's game, and how's it going to help, and are you in favour?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, as I previously mentioned, with the franchise, obviously they want to see 2 teams, 1 club. I feel like it's a really good motto to put out there for 2 teams, 1 club within each clubs that have got tier 1s, tier 2s. I think it's going to bring a lot more to the women's game. Obviously, there's more funding, more backing. Having previously been our own sort of business, our own sort of, we've had to create it from nothing. Not a lot of people have heard of it, but whereas Surrey or Kent or all these older founded clubs, they're more well heard of. So it's easier to be able to put a face and a team into that environment that's already well established and well known than trying to create your own and try and push that through when not a lot of people understand it or know what it's about. So I think that's really good to be able to put those 2 together, but then also to be able to have double headers with the men and share similar experience with them. I think that it'll take the women's game to the next level, to be able to be in the same facilities as them and everything like that. I just think it's been a really good move for women's cricket to be able to be tied to a men's county now. So now having that tier 1 side, I think, and that structure has been really, really promising for women's cricket.
Do you think it's a on the flip side of that? Do you think it's a kick in the teeth for your old county Kent to be not in that program? Obviously, they've lost. They might have lost you. They might have lost you anyway. Let's say we don't know what would have happened, but people, good players, are probably migrating towards tier 1 clubs who have got ambitions about playing for England or franchise cricket. Do you think the tier structure is going to be to the detriment of counties like Kent who have lost their status or got tier 2 status, or can they, is there a way back for them to in the next few years to get into that? Do you think it'll even itself up, or is it a big loss for Kent?
I don't think they've lost any status. Obviously, it's unfortunate that they didn't win the bid. But that's not to say that they can't get back into a tier 1 side in the women's game. In 3 years' time, it becomes competitive. And I know a lot of really talented girls have gone over to Kent, and I think they'll have a really strong tier 2 side this year. I don't think that they've lost much, apart from obviously missing out on the first 3 years. I think after that, they could be whatever they want themselves to be, but they just need to believe in it. I feel like if they just believe that all their players are lost and everything, that won't be the case. But there are a lot of Kent girls within who are playing for Surrey, a lot of players who are out and out Kent and that have reluctantly put on the Surrey kit just for their own development. So I feel like if Kent ever were to get back into tier 1, it would then make decisions very hard for certain players, especially with people who live in Kent or is closer to commute and things like that. We have some girls who commute 2 hours to training every day who live down in Canterbury. So to get to the Oval every day, 4 days a week, it's a long trek. So I think it would definitely put a second thought in people's mind who are in situations like that.
So it might be a blessing in disguise for them like it might be that they give themselves another 2 years to get themselves organised and ready for Tier 1, and then maybe some of the girls will go back, because I'm not a women's cricket expert by any stretch, and I'm sure Chris would say the same. But my feeling is that Kent have always been pretty strong in women's cricket, haven't they? They've had a lot of the top players come from Kent, and obviously Tammy Beaumont's from Sandwich Cricket Club, and obviously is a very very proudly from Kent, and lots over the years of the England cricketers have been from Kent, and it's been a very strong county. So it is a shame that they're not in it, but hopefully they can restructure or reorganise or get themselves ready for the next round of bids, or the next 3 years, and get themselves back into it, because it feels like they should be in the women's game at the top level, because they've had so much success over the years. But I appreciate that's not the be all and end all of it these days. It's purse bids and facilities and crowds and stuff. So, hopefully they can get themselves back into it in 2 or 3 years' time. We got some more questions from Australia. What advice would you give to any of us parents that want their son or daughter to go pro? What's your 2 or 3 bits of advice, Ryana, for parents whose kids are thinking about making it a career?
I definitely push to believe in them. I feel like when I grew up, I had a lot of belief around me. A lot of the people at my club, my parents, coaches, ground staff, everyone who was around me, they always believed in me, even from a really young age. They always said, you're going to play for England one day, and when you do, I want to be at that game, and things like that. So I feel like that is definitely a massive thing, being able to believe that your child can do it, because then they will believe in themselves. Obviously it's a lot of commitment. Like, my parents sacrificed a lot to drive me around everywhere, get me to training, and yeah, so I feel like that's, unfortunate as it is, that is one of the main things. But yeah, I would say probably just encourage them, make sure they're having a good time as well. Like, it's really hard to go pro if you're not enjoying the sport. So they just have to make sure that they can believe in them, they're having fun, but then also that they can put in the hours that allows them to have that bigger commitment to the sport.
Great advice. Tell us a little bit about. I personally wanted to hear about the Ashes. When we got you to come on, I wanted to hear about the Ashes, and obviously we touched on at the start about a fairly steep rise through the game in 5 or 6 years, from county debut to international debut. So you made your ODI debut in 2024 against Ireland, and then not long after that, Test match debut. So tell us a little bit about that whirlwind sort of few months, because that must have been pretty overwhelming, stroke exciting, stroke whatever. Like, tell us a bit about that period, Ryana.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously with the World Cup, the T20 World Cup going on in Dubai, a lot of the main squad, like the main players, were preoccupied with that, making sure they were fit and ready to go out there and prepared. They were out here in Abu Dhabi preparing for that, so that they could get a bit of warm weather training before, just to ensure that they're able to put themselves in the best possible position going into that World Cup, which obviously left the Ireland series to be for other players, for a lot of development players to come up and through and prove that why they should be competing for those spots in the main squad. So yeah, that was great to play the ODIs and the T20s out there. Was really good opportunities for a lot of players, just to show everyone that we do have more coming through, and that those 15 players who were away aren't the only things that we have to show for the talent in the country. So I think that was really, really great to have that opportunity. And then, yeah, I just feel like from then it's just sort of kicked on. It's sort of more opportunities came. There's more injuries already, like always injuries around. So you just got to make sure you're always on it. And then to go to South Africa, that was a great experience in itself. To play a test, like my first test, that was amazing. That was completely something new to me. And then to get told in South Africa, you're going to Australia for the whole month. I was like, wow, this has really gone from 0 to 100 in the space of not a lot of time. But yeah, no, it was really, really great to have that experience of before have Ireland and then have South Africa and then go to Australia and feel quite prepared going into the Australia series, knowing that I have been around the international camps for the last 2 series. So that could definitely put a bit more confidence in me going out there. Yeah.
Do you play much 4-day or multi-day cricket in like first class or domestic cricket in England?
No, not at all. I think the last time I was saying this, like the last time I played red ball was when I played men's. Really, we have a couple of one-off games. I think there was a 3-day game against South Africa about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And then a 2-day game, warm-up game against Australia when they came over here for the Ashes last time. But nothing like 4-day. We never play 4-day game in first class cricket. Which is interesting.
Surely then, if with the profile and the way that the women's game is going, and surely I've heard Heather Knight interviewed and people, similar level of like Sophie Eccleston, and they say that the test matches is what they want to play and there should be more test matches. Surely though, that has to start from a lower level. Like me and Carl play the occasional 3-day game for the MCC, and we can hardly move for about a month afterwards, but we've played a few of those. We try and play a few a year or something. So, but it must be a big shock to the system for you, and no wonder why you might have struggled in the test matches against Australia over the years. If there's absolutely nothing in terms of red ball or multi-day cricket in this country, surely the aim now is to embrace and to basically use the money that's coming in from the 100 to maybe try and put some infrastructure in place for a 3-day first class rota or something to actually allow. Because I don't know what your thoughts are, but one of my questions I had written down was, do you enjoy playing the whites and the red and the 4-day cricket, or is it purely now the 2020? What's the general feeling within the ladies' game? Is it something that they want to look at more, the first class cricket?
Yeah, so firstly, I did really enjoy the experience of playing red ball cricket 4-day. It's a completely different way that you'd play in different style, which is really exciting. And I think we could all learn a lot more, and we could develop our 50 over skills more by playing more long format and even T20 skills. I feel like you can always just improve all forms of your game by playing for a longer period of time, having more discipline, having better execution for long periods of time. I completely understand where you say that surely we would play 3-day, 4-day games in the first class cricket in order to prepare for England stuff. And yeah, I think people do want to play it. I know it was definitely trialed out with the junior setup, the junior academies last year. They played a few 3-day games, which was really interesting to see how they would respond to that. So I think it went down well. But yeah, then also it's just sort of finding the time to fit it in the schedule. We start in the 3rd week of April, we start on the 23rd, the first game of the season, and then we run all the way up until September, and it's pretty non-stop, with the 100 being in August and your T20 and 50 over comps before, and then you finish your 50 over comps after. Like the schedule this year is quite hectic, so it's trying to find time to fit in a new format into that summer schedule would probably be the issue and the problem in itself. But I think people will definitely be keen for it.
Yeah, I guess, but I think from the men's side of things, it's the pinnacle is always discussed as the test matches and the county championship. You'd like to think, KP is similar to me. We're pretty old school cricket tradition, purists. I would be. It would personally, I think that a lot of the 100 and the franchise stuff is great, but I think there's too much of it. And as I said, I'm definitely no expert on women's cricket, but it would be great to see something. Maybe we're cutting back some of the 1-day stuff, and we're going to try and have a 3-day, even if it's 5 games. I don't know. With the tier stuff, just 1 game against each. And then ultimately, because that's where a lot of people's interest in cricket is, isn't it? And I think you actually would probably draw a new audience to women's cricket as well if you then added in another dimension, because ultimately, it's the same with men's cricket in Scotland. I went up and played a 3-day game up there with Whites and Red Ball, and they said half the team who play for Scotland or Scotland A had to go out and buy a set of whites because all they do is play with the pink ball and the colour kit, and it just seems bizarre that we all bang on about how good Test match cricket is, and I don't know whether that the women's like watching the guys test cricket, but surely then the organisers or the people have to be saying, we've got all this money coming in, surely we can start to develop cricket as a whole, not just how do we get another franchise in or another pink ball tournament. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, and something to follow for sure. But yeah, you'd think like a county championship style format would be something to prioritise getting in rather than trying to squeeze it in with everything else.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that point of view. I think it's, maybe in years to come, that might be a focus point. But I think currently, obviously, with moving to the new tiered structure, I feel like trying to get that up and running, but then also being able to have that development that goes down throughout the academies and through the younger age groups. I feel like currently in the country, whereas there are a lot of really talented players, whether you will have that caliber of play in 3-day game with, if you're going to introduce that, there could be more injuries. Are there going to be enough people to fill that spots? But then also, if let's say it runs how the men's do, is there going to be enough players left in each county to actually continue the competition throughout the 100? With there being so many of those players there, you'd have to try and expand your squad. And obviously, we have quite an expanded squad, but we definitely don't have enough to fill another whole side, plus like injury replacements. And I just feel like you'd probably lose that level of cricket if you were to try and do it too quickly. I feel like maybe in a couple of years' time, when there's more development, people are older, there's a new people coming through, I think then that would be a good time to expand out through. I think for now, it's more about trying to get the women's game more expanded first before trying to introduce new formats. Yeah.
The next comment is gonna give us a segue into the Ashes. But the England ECB are doing a review on the women's game after the Ashes series, and the report will come out in due course about where the women's game goes next and how we bridge the gap or whatever. But that just takes us back to asking you, because none of us in the chat, or none of us have ever played in the Ashes. So what's it like to play in an Ashes series, Ryana, in Australia against the Aussies, up close, cut and thrust? What's it like? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you find it overwhelming? Did you, can you not wait for the next for a chance to get back at them in a few years' time? How did it feel? Because none of us in the chat, I'm sure, have played Test cricket or played Ashes cricket. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to play in the Ashes.
It's really special. To know it only comes around every 2 years. I guess it's a bit like the Olympics. The Olympics is very special to athletes, and I feel like the Ashes is just as special to cricket players. Obviously it was an unfortunate series out there, but it was a really amazing opportunity to be a part of. I think it was really exciting, and we can learn a lot from it. And to know that, it makes me even more excited to play them in 2 years' time when they come back over here. Obviously, playing away is always really, really hard with crowds and just being in different conditions. And obviously, some players like myself I've never played over there. So whereas a lot of the Aussies have been over here and played over here in different various competitions. But yeah, no, it was really amazing. I don't think you could describe it with words. I think it's just an experience that if you're lucky enough to experience it, you just have to take it all in and lap up every moment and see every opportunity as learning. And it was so much fun, and I enjoyed it so much, and I can't wait for them to come over here in 2 years' time.
Give us your preparation in terms of that. There's always going to be media stick, and the guys have gone over there. I think the last 4 Ashes series, we've lost something like 13-1 or 13-0. A lot of talk about preparation. What's a typical preparation you for an Ashes tour? Are you going in 2 or 3 weeks early and playing warm-up games and net sessions? What's the general? How does it look? How does your tour outside of the TV televised games look?
Yeah, so I can only say about what happened this Ashes series, but we were obviously it was quite a busy year that the girls had. They obviously had all their series, and then they had the World Cup, and they had the World Cup prep, and then they came back, and then it was October, and everyone in professional cricket is normally off in October unless you go away and play franchise somewhere else. And then obviously there was the Big Bash, and then we had the South Africa series. So there was just a lot of games going on. I feel like I definitely knew people. The squad came up to Loughborough, and we did Red Bull days, focus in preparation to play Red Bull stuff and longer formats. But yeah, obviously with South Africa finishing and we all got home 5 days before Christmas, there wasn't a lot of time to, I guess, prep for the Ashes series specifically. But I feel like they prepped really well for the T20, the 50 over, and then the test that we played in South Africa. And then went to Australia. We had a few warm-up games, but a lot of them actually got rained off, which is shock, surprise. But I feel like we do a lot of scenarios in the nets, lots of what you need to work on, what you want to focus on. I think it was unfortunate that we didn't actually end up being able to finish a warm-up game out there due to the weather, as I feel like that would have put us in a bit more of a good stead going into the series. But yeah, that's what it looked like, this Ashes series.
Give us some hope, Ryana. The Ashes series over here was, the previous one was drawn, I think, 8-all, and this one, we won't mention the score, but it wasn't quite as close. Give us some hope. Do the girls feel, do the women feel that we are poles apart from the Aussies, or do we feel, as English supporters, have we got a chance in 2 years' time? Do we think we can bridge the gap? Can we get the Ashes back at some stage?
Yeah, I definitely believe we can. I feel like the gap between us and Australia isn't immense. Obviously, when we've gone over there, you look at the facilities that they have. Even at a county facility, it's nothing like any of our facilities over in England. You go, like, they have their regional, their state stuff, I guess, is equivalent to our county stuff, and all of it's better than our national training centre in Loughborough. Like, it's incomparable. So you look at that, and you look at how they train every day and how they get treated, I guess, and work with the funding that they have through Cricket Australia. It's miles apart. So it's really hard to compare it in that sense. But I feel like from a cricket terms point of view, we're not really far apart from each other. I know we obviously made quite a few mistakes out there in Australia. But yeah, I feel like if we focus on ourselves, I think we will. Obviously, it was really close last time we were over here. I think it will be another really close series when they come back over here in 2 years' time. So
we're all living in hope that we can get the Ashes back for both the women and the men in years to come. The men obviously go down there this winter and play for the Ashes down there. In the chat, we've got plenty of questions. Doesn't actually relate to your women's game, but there's lots of interest around in the chat from our Indian and followers. Who do you think is going to win the Champions Trophy final on Sunday, India or New Zealand?
That's a really tough question. I think that I haven't seen much of New Zealand's performances and matches. So just off the bat, I could probably say India. I feel like the way that they've gone about their tournament, the way that they've approached it, obviously they have been playing in different conditions, but the way that they've adapted in the games on who they've been playing, the pitches that they're on, they're not all playing the style that they want to play. But to be able to adapt the way that they have been and to be able to share the responsibility throughout the team, I think that puts them in really good stead for the final Sunday. So I reckon India might take that one.
Great stuff.
there isn't 1% of my being that wants India to win that final. I think they will win it, but the way that they've obviously manipulated and potentially used politics to make sure they play all their games in Dubai. I saw an interview of David Miller where he was like, South Africa and Australia both had to fly to Dubai at 4:30 in case they had to play the semi-final. South Africa then found out that they were in the other semi. They flew back 12 hours later to Pakistan to play. It's just ludicrous. And now, last World Cup, Pakistan played in India. I heard last night on the radio that Pakistan now in the next World Cup or World Tournament that's played in India will have the same rights as India have had in this one. They'll be allowed to play in Dubai, but it's a bit of a farce, really. And we can dress it up as much as you like, but India pulling power and all that. But yeah, there isn't a shred of doubt that I want New Zealand to win that final. I think they've actually got a good side and able to do it. They've obviously beat India recent Test match series 3-0 over there, which no one's done in a very long time. They've got a couple of good spinners and some good batters, so hopefully they can win the toss and bat, and then it might be an interesting game. But yeah, I don't. I'm going to annoy some people watching, I'm sure, and hopefully I do, because yeah, I definitely don't want India to win that tournament.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you on the terms about the politics. I think that's obviously never a nice way to gain an advantage in a tournament, especially a tournament of such high caliber like the Champions Trophy. So that is unfortunate, but yeah, I think the way that they've gone about their play has been incredible. So it'll be a really, really interesting final.
Yeah, and look, they've obviously hit some good form, New Zealand. It's a shame South Africa. I mean, the way the game finished yesterday looked interesting. I think David Miller hit 50 off the last two overs to get to 100 in a bit of a dead finish. But yeah, look, is the men's game something that you like to watch and take a big interest in, running alongside, or you're obviously in Abu Dhabi at the moment. Have you managed to get across or see any of the games at the moment in Champions Trophy, or is it something you'll be able to get to?
It's not something we've been able to get to. Training days have been pretty hectic. Training morning and evenings, doing scenarios, playing under the lights, doing lots of extra practice in that sense. But yeah, we've been following along. I do enjoy watching the men's game and seeing what they do. I think a lot of the players are very innovative in the way that they play, and it's definitely inspiring to see how they can just give it a go and how things work. And yeah, I just think that some things that they do is incredible, and that you could I could definitely look to try and not replicate, but sort of try and follow a bit of what they're trying to do and see if it works even in the women's game as well. So yeah, I think a lot of them are definitely inspiring. But yeah, no, I haven't unfortunately been able to get over.
What we try and get these wrapped up in an hour, Ryana, and we've got 5 or 6 minutes left. So what I want to finish up with is what does 2025 hold for you? You told us before we started, and you're off back to Australia for the Australia A series. So that's next. What does the rest of the year hold for you?
Yeah, obviously with the A series coming up, that's really exciting. It's a great opportunity to go out there and play a bit more of a senior role out there, having just experienced the same conditions, training in the same places, being in the same area. It'd be really interesting to see how everything goes out there, and with a lot of players playing out there already, they can share their experiences. And then the season starts when we get back. So hit the ground running. I'm really, really excited to play this season. I've been telling everyone for weeks, like, I can't wait for the season to start. It's going to be so great. But yeah, the season will start. Hopefully have some great comps, great games. Really looking forward to the 100 in August, which is so fun. But yeah, no, I think it's just going to be a really great year of domestic and regional cricket.
Sounds like the 100's a really exciting part of the fixture list now, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's always really nice to see, like, you see August can, you're like, yes, the 100's in.
And the Surrey stuff starts as soon as you get back from Australia. So you straight into the Tier 1 stuff, and then international series during the summer.
Yes, we are playing West Indies and India this summer. I'm not sure in which formats, but I think maybe 50 over in T20s. And then obviously, and then there's the World Cup in September as well, the 50 over World Cup in India, which will be interesting. But yeah, it's going to be a really great season.
Pretty jam-packed year with hopefully 50 over World Cup, the 100, some international series, A series, and Tier 1 cricket. So when do you get some time off? When do you get some downtime in the next 8-9 months?
Normally October is a month off for players, but it depends what your international fixtures are looking like. Obviously, we'll be out in India, so that won't be any time off. But I do study at university, so I don't really actually ever have any time off because obviously with everyone having October off, university starts in the last week of September. So there is not much time off from anything really. So
Freshers Week, you mean busy time?
No. I'm a final year student. I don't do that sort of shenanigans.
Ryana, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I've loved hearing about the women's game. I'm a fan of the women's game. I love coming to the games in the 100. I'm going to look forward to all the games this year, and especially the Oval Invincibles at Lords on the opening day of the season. The champion. Let's finish this and edit it properly. The champion London Spirit women at home to the Oval Invincibles. First day.
Wooden spoon contenders, Oval Invincibles.
We will be there. We'll look forward to seeing you. We won't be cheering you on that day, but we wish you every success for the 2025 season and for your career. Huge congratulations on what you've done so far. And we would love to have you back on in the future one day to tell us about what your career. And thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it, and have a great 2025.
Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed being on, and we'll definitely come on in the future.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ryana.
Thanks, you.
Ryana.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye. See you.
Cheers, guys.
See you, everyone.